On Friday, 19th of July, the year 2024, at 4:09 a.m. UTC, cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike pushed out a routine sensor configuration update. Little did they know that this update would bring the world to a halt within the matter of a few hours. This cataclysmic event shut down businesses, wreaked havoc at airports as flights were grounded and passengers were stranded, threatened the lives of hospitalized patients, disrupted financial transactions, and more. All of this at a global scale. So what actually happened? Upon installation of the CrowdStrike update, Windows systems around the world began to crash, displaying the infamous blue screen of death message, and then rebooting. Instead of returning to normalcy after the reboot, systems kept crashing and rebooting time and time again in an endless boot loop. This has understandably caused outrage, and the question on everyone's mind is, how could something like this happen? To answer this, we must first understand three key ingredients: CrowdStrike, operating systems, and updates. CrowdStrike is an American technology firm that provides the Falcon endpoint detection and response solution used by enterprises around the world to secure their businesses against cyber threats. An operating system is the backbone of a computer system and manages its hardware components and enables applications to interact with them. In an operating system, software runs at different privilege levels for security and stability. Applications run in what is known as the user mode with limited access to system resources. Drivers and system files operate in kernel mode with full access to the hardware and system, ensuring everything runs smoothly and securely. Updates are essential improvements for software, providing new features, bug fixes, and security enhancements. In other words, updates are supposed to make the existing software better and more secure. Combining these three elements is where the rubber meets the road. As a security solution, CrowdStrike Falcon has to operate with high privileges in order to provide real-time threat detection and response capabilities. As the threat landscape is constantly changing with new exploits and thousands of new malware samples released each day, security solutions have to be updated several times a day to keep up. If any flaw, or as we say, a bug, exists in the update, it can cause the system to malfunction to the extent that it cannot recover on its own. According to CrowdStrike, a channel file known as c-291.sys caused the issue. So what is a channel file? Cybersecurity expert John Strand from Black Hills Information Security described it as a file for minor or definition updates, which is likely generated by a manual process rather than through automation. Security researchers have been able to examine the file and have pointed out that it was full of null bytes. Files with the .sys extension function as kernel drivers with high privileges. Geoff Thayer from Black Hills Information Security explains that kernel driver development is a specialized skill because there are no guardrails when it comes to memory allocation and memory space and resource management. Any error can destabilize the kernel, resulting in a system crash. To combat this, Microsoft introduced PatchGuard in Windows Vista, which prohibited descriptor table patching directly in the kernel, and any attempt to circumvent this would automatically result in a system crash. Microsoft provided some limited means for driver development in the kernel through kernel callback notifications, which essentially provide a means for the driver to request information from the kernel when certain events occur. The problem is that the kernel remains vulnerable if the driver does not process the requested information correctly or in a timely manner. Thayer explains that their understanding is that the kernel notification callback registered by the CrowdStrike driver called out for a notification to be made, but encountered a driver that had bad or missing code, resulting in an immediate system crash. Researchers have discovered that the system crash is likely due to an access violation exception, which typically means that a register in the CPU has received a memory address containing only zeros, and when attempting to fetch it has caused an exception to occur because a memory address containing only zeros does not exist. The kernel does not make provisions for structured exception handling, which means that no recovery is possible, and any exception results in a system crash. On July 20th, the year 2024, CrowdStrike released a blog post stating that Although channel files end with the .sys extension, they are not kernel drivers. The configuration update triggered a logic error that resulted in an operating system crash. This is not related to null bytes contained within channel file 291 or any other channel file. In an effort to help affected parties recover from this catastrophic event, CrowdStrike has released the following workaround. 1. Reboot the host to give it an opportunity to download the reverted channel file. 2. If the host crashes again, boot Windows into safe mode or the Windows recovery environment and navigate to Windows, System32, Drivers, CrowdStrike. Locate the offending channel file and delete it. 3. Boot the host normally. Note, however, that BitLocker encrypted hosts may require a recovery key. CrowdStrike has further clarified that the channel file having a timestamp of 0527 AM UTC or later is the reverted or good version, whereas the problematic version can be identified by a timestamp of 0409 AM UTC. They underscore that it is normal for multiple of these channel files to be present in the CrowdStrike directory. The key is that at least one of the 291.sys channel files needs to have a timestamp of 0527 AM UTC or later. CrowdStrike has ruled out that the incident was caused by a cyber attack. The general consensus at the moment is that the outage was caused by human error in the update. However, the question that no one seems to be asking is, if the cause was merely human error, how did the update pass through all of CrowdStrike's rigorous quality control tests without any issues, and yet was able to cause a global outage that affected all versions of the Windows operating system currently in use? Correction, almost all versions of Windows currently in use. As was pointed out by John C_21, Southwest is using Windows 3.1 released way back in the year 1992, and is reportedly not affected by the outage. Now, this is obviously not a recommended practice, but this time, it seems to have paid off for Southwest. Back to the question, the potential for this being an insider threat case should not be ruled out. It must also be noted that cyber criminals have wasted no time capitalizing on the situation. Threat actors have been seen distributing the Remcos rat Trojan to CrowdStrike's customers in Latin America under the guise of providing a hotfix. Several fake sites have also sprang up, and scammers are busy trying to trick distressed users through phishing attacks and fake telephone calls. How can we prevent this from happening in the future? While there is no foolproof way, one approach is to deploy patches in phases. For example, you could first update a subset of your least critical systems. If there are no issues, continue updating the rest of the subset. Then proceed to update your critical systems monitoring for any issues. Lastly, update your most critical systems one at a time, if possible. You should also keep your most critical systems on an isolated internal network. If you found this video informative and useful, please like, share, and subscribe. What are your thoughts on the possible cause? Could it be a cyber attack, despite what CrowdStrike is telling us? Is it merely human error that brought the world to a halt? Would an insider threat scenario be plausible? Share your thoughts and comment below.